for the discrimination, the apartheid actions, and oppression that the Palestinian people are living. We want to make it clear to the public in Vancouver that this is not an issue between two equal sides. This is not an issue between two equal sides when it comes to power. This is an issue between an oppressor and an oppressed, an occupier and occupied. Before we begin, we're gonna tell you about a few housekeeping points. Like we said, please keep social distancing and your mask at all times. We're in very difficult times and we really want to make sure that we're safe. Second, this protest is meant to be a peaceful protest. Please be mindful when you protest. You can shout, you can sing, you can do whatever you want, but please be respectful. We will not allow any kind of violence, cussing, taunting, burning of flags, or stepping on flags. And as we know, we're here to share a safe space, to send a message, and to educate people. I'm leaving you with Amin.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Amin Al-Ayada. I'm an Iraqi born, raised in Jordan, Palestinian at heart. Ever since we were little kids in Iraq, we often heard the name of Palestine, Al-Quds, over and over again. And that name got engraved in our hearts. It doesn't matter what people say. We get accused of selling our land. They say Palestinians sold their land. We didn't sell our lands. The Arabs sold our lands for us.
Shame!
Yes, shame! Thank you! Thank you! A few months ago, the UAE signed a peace treaty with Israel, and then followed by Bahrain, then followed by Morocco. And today, we're going to shame all of these countries. We want to shame the UAE. Shame! Saudi Arabia! Shame! Jordan! Shame! We want to shame every single country that sold the Palestinian land to the Zionists. It's because of them that people in Palestine are suffering. It's because of them people in Gaza are getting killed every single day. It's because of them the people in Jerusalem are getting their homes taken away from them. But today we say, enough is enough! Enough is enough! Palestine is ours, and it always will be ours! As the first speaker, I would like to introduce Stephen, a member of the Independent Jewish Voices. I've worked with Stephen and the Independent Jewish Voices numerous times. They're the only Jewish organization that I know that support Palestine, and they're against the racism that is happening against the Palestinian people. Stephen, please come up, share your thoughts. We would like to
Thank you, Amin, and thank you everyone for coming here. A little correction, there are lots of Jewish organizations that are standing in solidarity with our Palestinian brothers and sisters and saying no to occupation, no to ethnic cleansing, and no to apartheid. I want to tell you that on Monday, Independent Jewish Voices Canada called on the Trudeau government to denounce Israeli violence against Palestinian protesters and Muslim worshippers after hundreds had been wounded in and around the old city of Jerusalem. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in Islam, was again a site of attack both inside and outside the mosque, as Palestinians marked the final week of the holy month of Ramadan. And meanwhile, just outside the old city walls, residents of the Palestinian neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah are struggling to hold onto their homes in the face of efforts by Israeli authorities to evict them and replace them with Jewish Israeli settlers intent on clearing the area of its Palestinian inhabitants. Shame indeed. As Canadian Jews, many of whom came to Canada fleeing anti-Jewish persecution and violence, we refuse to sit back idly while Israel commits these atrocities in our name. That's a quote from our national coordinator, Corey Balsam, who pointed out that a recent opinion poll found that 82% of Canadians want Jerusalem to be a shared capital between Israelis and Palestinians, and Israel's dangerous actions in East Jerusalem not only threaten such a prospect, but also the very presence of Palestinians in the city. We need to be clear about what has been unfolding in Jerusalem and elsewhere. It is mob violence, ethnic cleansing, religious persecution, police brutality, and apartheid. Shame. All of these are symptoms of Israel's regime, which is recognized by human rights organizations like Human Rights Watch and B'Tselem as perpetrating the crime of apartheid. Now, I don't need to tell you that this is nothing new. We've seen this before. We know the script. Israel beats, kills, steals, confiscates, and provokes. And when Palestinians in Gaza and elsewhere fight back, Israel responds with massively disproportionate, deadly force. And so it is playing out right now, right at this very minute. Over the past 72 hours, Israel has killed dozens of people, including at least 16 children, and 7 Israelis have been killed by Hamas rockets. We've been witnessing just today right-wing racist riots and lynch mobs in the state of Israel. All life is precious, any loss of life is tragic, and we must not forget how this started with the Nakba, with occupation, with apartheid, with siege, with home theft by settlers in Jerusalem, and with attacks on the third holiest site for Muslims in the world. And when we see Israeli forces attacking Muslim worshippers inside of one of Islam's holiest sites, we can't help but think of instances when we as Jews have come under attack in our places of worship. Now, it is beyond shameful that the Trudeau government continues to stand so closely behind Israel despite shame indeed, despite all the atrocities it is committing. Mild calls, like we've heard, for de-escalation of tensions and for all sides to avoid unilateral actions. Toothless expressions of grave concern are simply not going to cut it. They are worthless. It's time for Prime Minister Trudeau and Foreign Minister Garneau to denounce Israel's actions forcefully and to back their words up with concrete measures. For example, the Government of Canada can cancel the Canada-Israel Free Trade Agreement. It can end military and security cooperation and trade with Israel. It can ban all goods and services of companies operating in illegal colonial settlements. And it can acknowledge the legitimacy of the Palestinian call for boycott, divestment, and sanctions. Without actual consequences like these, Israel will continue to trample on Palestinian human rights and thumb its nose at international law. This is not a question of, quote, both sides, as Trudeau and Foreign Minister Garneau and sadly so many of our media generally present it. And it's not complicated. There is one party with power to change this situation, and it is Israel. Now this afternoon, something new happened. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh asked in the House of Commons, will the Prime Minister commit to stopping the sale of arms to Israel while they are violating international human rights? And the Prime Minister's answer, of course, was blah, 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 both sides, missiles, self-defense, grave concern, no. I'm interested, maybe even a tiny grain of hopeful, in what Jagmeet Singh said. I'm interested in what MPs like Nikki Ashton and Matthew Green of the NDP and Jenica Atwin of the Greens have said, speaking out for human rights and against apartheid. Could this be the timid beginning, I ask myself, dare we hope, of the principled progressive Canadian parliamentary response we have been struggling for decades? Dare we hope? Friends, let's not hope. Let's make it so. It's up to us to pile on the pressure on our elected representatives to do the right thing and to support them when they do. I will close by saying that IJV members are participating in emergency rallies across Canada, including here and in Calgary, Toronto, and Montreal. We will be supporting Nakba Day rallies across Canada on May 15th. There's one here, I expect you probably know. We thank you for your welcome here, and we ask you to do something. We ask you to join us in demanding that the Government of Canada take action to force the State of Israel to respect human rights and international law. So I invite you, when you get home, search for the hashtags Save Sheikh Jarrah and Free Gaza. Look for those hashtags and you will find petitions, letters to MPs, ministers and party leaders, opportunities to donate, further actions like this one today. So I beg you, call, write, visit your MP, tell them, tell the media, take it to the streets and tell the world, Palestinian lives matter. Palestine will be free. Thank you.
Just a little background on what's happening in Sheikh Jarrah. What are your